41 died over this period of time, right? So that doesn't seem like much odd. There's 3 different ways to convey risk when you're talking statistics, right? First is the absolute risk reduction, which is the direct reduction from the drug. So it's 41 minus 32, that's a difference between them, over the number of people being treated, over 1,000, it's 0.9. It's pretty modest. It's the absolute risk reduction, it's not going to make a major difference. The other method is the relative risk reduction, and this is what your newspapers will do. They love relative risk reduction. They take the absolute reduction over the number of patients dying without it. So they go, well, there's 9 people, the difference between these numbers is 9, and 41 people died without it. So 9 over 41 is 22%. Let's market it that way. If I was working in marketing, that's how I'd sell my product as well. The final way, which is actually a real test of it, is called the number needed to treat. It's the number of patients needed to save 1 life. So how many people would have to be taking this to save 1 life? Well, 9 over 1,000, 1 over 100, 111 patients would have to take this medicine to save 1 life. So the figure of 22% seems quite high. Its relative effect is pretty low. In fact, we can see its relative effect is 0.9, nothing. And this is unlike, say, antibiotics. If you look at their rates, the difference is huge. Between placebo and antibiotic, it's massive. Between vaccination and non-vaccination, massive effects too. We'll get onto that, don't you worry. It's coming up. So, here's one that's been in the media a little bit recently, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to be... People always think I'm being bad at this, but it's absolutely true. Breast cancer screening, right? And this has been covered a little bit recently, and finally people are recognising this a little bit. Here's deaths per 1,000 women over the age of 40, right? Without screening, 3 die. Or sorry, with screening, 3 die in 1,000 of breast cancer. Without screening, 4 die. So, the absolute risk reduction is 1 person in 1,000 is actually 0.1%. It's pretty small. The relative risk reduction is 1 in 4. So it looks like it's 25% risk reduction. It's not really, but it looks that way. Number needed to treat, 1 over 1,000 people. You need to screen 1,000 people to save 1 life. There's another thing you can do in medicine if you're really bored. You can work out how much does that treatment extend their life by. Increase in life expectancy due to screening is 12 days after the age of 60s. In an insight, I'm going to talk a little bit why screening is not always a good thing. In fact, it's usually not a good thing. Can be, but we'll talk about when it can and can't. So breast cancer is a motive issue has been highlighted by loads of publications. And you've probably noticed there's always been this kind of urge to get checked, get checked, get checked. And finally people are starting to go, no, don't. Radiologists especially go, go away, we don't want to check you. I'll tell you what in a sec. The above table for women over 40, a more in-depth analysis would yield no benefit for people in their 40s, some benefit for people 50 plus, and detrimental if you're under 40. How can a test for something be detrimental? How could that actually affect your health? Well, the reason is why. The rate of false positives is extremely high for young women. The most common cancer for young women is adductocarcinoma in situ, DICTS. They don't call it that in the labs, but they should. It'd be great. Basically, it's a stage 0 cancer. It is unlikely to ever progress. It will stay there, and you are more likely to be found at autopsy than you are to actually suffer from it. However, if I'm the radiologist doing your mammogram and I find that, I have one option. Operate. Mastectomy, lumpectomy, radiation therapy. You don't need it. That will never bother you. But you understand from a doctor's perspective, when he finds something, he has to do something. There's a risk of litigation if he doesn't. They should say, we'll wait it out. We'll see what happens. But very few surgeons are willing to do that, given that their career could go on the line if they were wrong at one time. They will take the option of, removing a breast. So that's kind of what I said there a little bit. And you can understand why. I mean, we sue for everything, so other breast cancers progress so slowly they will probably never cause an issue in the person's life. So let me... breast cancer is highly publicised, so what is the risk of a woman or man dying from it? There are cases of men dying from breast cancer too. Well then, let's look at a big table full of figures and find some stuff out. I swear the maths is almost over, I'm really sorry about this. The figure is correct. In 1999, Stern ran an article called 1 in 10, and it's been the most widely reprinted article on breast cancer. Every year I've seen variations with slight updates on the figures, but they're released. And it was extremely widely published. It actually made their reputation. Where did they get this figure from? The figure, believe it or not, from Woodson Media is correct, but with some qualifiers. Right? See, most of these instances of cancers, here we have a list of the ages of people alive initially in the interval, incidence of breast cancer, deaths from breast cancer, cardiovascular disease, and other deaths, right? You suddenly see where are the bulk of breast cancers. here, they start in the 50s, and up to around the age of 85, that's where you get most of your breast cancers. Now, if we look at the deaths in them, they're actually a lot lower. We can look at this in more details, right? Most of these breast cancers are diagnosed at autopsy. It's exactly there's a male equivalent. Prostate cancer is more likely to be diagnosed at autopsy than to actually kill you. As in, you could be having it for years and will never progress to the stage where it's actually interfering with your life. Cancer is weird like that. It's not as straightforward as I think it is. So, of these women here, 40 in 1,000 over their lifetime will die of breast cancer. But 104 of that will actually have it diagnosed at autopsy or suffer from it at some stage. So the actual figure is 4% of women will die from breast cancer. However, 42.5% of you girls here will die from cardiovascular problems. A problem that's often seen as a male problem. It really isn't. It affects everyone, right? Media is a massive effect, because when young women were surveyed about this, they absolutely put, oh, well, my risk of breast cancer is a much more likely thing that will kill me than cardiovascular disease. Which you can see from the figures here, 4% versus 42.5%. I don't have to do the analysis on that to show you the massive difference between them. So, maybe, is that because breast cancer is the worst cancer you could get? Well, let's be really morbid and look at cancer death rates, because they're fun. Right? So here's male-female selective. Here's instance of lung cancer. The blue one is the incidence, and the red one is how many people die. So lung cancer, if you're male, it's not great odds. These are almost the same. So if you get lung cancer, it's not great, you know? Lung cancer female, slightly better survival odds. Very slight. It's still pretty close. It's still not a good one to get. Breast cancer, there's your incidence, there's your actual deaths from it. So if you get a choice, it's not the worst in the world. Prostate cancer is good for men too. Not good for you. If someone put a gun to your head and said, choose a cancer, that's what I go with, right? And the colorectal cancer we talked about earlier is about half, it's about 50%. Right? So, yeah, lung cancer is, and obviously, you know, we all know about Patrick Swayze and pancreatic cancer. That's a real bastard. If you get that, the incidence is almost the exact same as mortality. So these are not good things then. So we've seen statistics can be a bit misleading. But you can lie with statistics, and this is fun. This is what I like doing. I'm not suggesting you do it, but let's learn how to bend the truth. Using statistics to tell lies. This is fun. So let's say you have a share portfolio, right? This is leading up to somewhere, I swear. I thought about this before. So you have $1 million and you've kind of blown it. You've at the end you got down to there. You know, you've got up and down. You have not been a good investor over this year, have you? But this is where we go back to our famous politicians trying to do things. The portfolio fell by 50% in the first 6 months. Yeah, it did. But then it raised in value by 60% in the last 6 months, which it did. Sure, isn't that a 10% gain? Because again, these are reference classes. That fall, that 50% fall is different from that 60% rise because they're starting with a different initial figure. But if you ever hear David McWilliams speaking, I want to bang that guy's head against the table because he does that. It fell 3% this year and 4% that year and 7%. No, it's not. But he makes a lot of money out of doing that, so I understand why. Percentages cannot be combined because they refer to different things. In this case, the portfolio has lost 20% of its value, not gained 10%. Because you went from from that to the 800,000 was the end. Yeah. So, right. For this reason, you've got to be very wary of media stories on percentage-heavy subjects. If you hear interest rates, I mean, every time with the ECB rate saying at 1%, what does that mean? Well, without a reference class, that means fuck all. Well, excuse my language, but it really means very little. And when you hear people talking about their things going up or down in value, sometimes you should just stop and go, what was your reference class? What are you referring to? So currency values, for example, when you're talking about them going up and down in value, what they actually should do is compare how much this will buy in this other currency. But they never do that. They go, it fell by 3%, it went up by 4%. And RT are notorious for getting it wrong.
Although it's usually a debate, it's usually against the dollar.
They do it a good bit now.
That's where the rate is coming from. It's usually
but the dollar
against the
is
US
going up and down in value as well. So
there is a base. If you know what I mean, they do mark to market it against other currencies. That's where they're getting.
And they do if you get the full reports. But RT, I was watching it last night. They're gits for doing that. They go went up 3%. 3% against what value? It doesn't mean anything, right? So this is where we get into talking a little bit about just how much this influences. So when Kylie Minogue was diagnosed with breast cancer, the request for mammograms went up 40% in that interval, right? This is how much we were influenced. Me, all the media covered it again, and it went up. Again, we've already talked about maybe screening wasn't the best idea if you're asymptomatic and young. When Jade Goody died of cervical cancer, Pap smear requests went up 21% in UK hospitals. Right? So people are getting their medical advice from people like Oprah. So Oprah can say whatever the hell she wants, and people go and buy it, and that's terrifying because Oprah usually says rubbish, right? So here's one, and here's how I love. This is what I get into in my medical fact. If you take ibuprofen, it can lead to 1 extra heart attack per 1,005 users. So pretty low risk increase if we do all our number crunching really wrong. How did the Daily Mail report that? It increases risk of heart attack by 24%, which is not even close to right.